What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with another fantasy football video. Today I am doing my first round rankings, letting you guys know who to take in that first round so you don't lose your league. Can't win your league in the first round, but you can definitely lose it. I'm going to let you know who are the surefire players that are going to help you win your league at each draft spot, address the risk at each spot so you know how to get that combination of both floor and upside early in this first round. Don't be the laughingstock of your league. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. I'll respond as always. My number one player is Christian McCaffrey, running back for the Carolina Panthers. Reason being, if you look back, it is a while back, but that 2019 season averaged 25.8 points per game, absolutely dominated, has dominated in the games that he's been able to play since. He just hasn't been able to stay on the field. If you look at his injuries, though, they aren't connected. There's no reason to think that these injuries will repeat. He just plays a contact sport at the running back position. Guys are going to get hurt. Anyone could get hurt. Obviously, he has, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily at a higher risk to get hurt this upcoming season. And if he doesn't get hurt, he gives you a great chance to win your fantasy football league. I think if Christian McCaffrey plays 17 games and you draft him as your number one overall pick, you probably have a 50% chance of winning your fantasy football league. And for that reason, he's my number one overall player. You can basically book him for 100 catches at the running back position. You're basically starting a first or second round slot receiver and a star running back at one position. It's a huge advantage over the rest of your league, and that's why I'm very comfortable taking him with the 101. My number two player is Jonathan Taylor. Finished as the number one running back in 2021, averaging 20.8 points per game. The reason I have him behind Christian McCaffrey is just that reason. We look at the points per game, there's just that little bit of a gap there. 25.8 for Christian McCaffrey in 2019. Scored a lot of points in the other games he's played as well. Like I mentioned, compared to Jonathan Taylor, 20.8. Not bad by any means. You'd love to have him on your fantasy team. And I think he carries less injury risk than Christian McCaffrey. He's younger, better offensive line. They're going to lean on him, probably going to have more carries. I think his receptions could come up this season. Nowhere close to Christian McCaffrey, though, and that's why I have him at number two. Offers a great deal of touchdown upside, though. Had 20 touchdowns last year. He could certainly get close to that number again, although you don't expect him to, but he's still a surefire bet in your fantasy football leagues and would be thrilled to take him with the number one or the number two selection. My number three player had an absolute monster year last season. Cooper Kupp averaged 21.6 points per game as a wide receiver. Impeccable. All these points per game are in half-point PPR as well, just to let you guys know. Had the triple crown, most receptions, most touchdowns, and most receiving yards in all of football. Had an absolute insane target share. Don't think he'll repeat anywhere close to that 191 targets last year, but even if he loses 20 targets, he's still at that 170 mark. Very few receivers in the league are that high of a reception total. He's targeting the red zone as well at a high rate. That's what you want for fantasy football, a guy who can catch a lot of passes, be very consistent on a week-to-week basis, offer you touchdown upside as well. That's why he's worthy of a pick this high for me at the 3 spot, just the safety that he provides as well. Now, the only thing that you have to monitor with him is the Matthew Stafford situation. If you get bad news on that front, obviously I would pass on him and take my number 4 player, which is none other than Justin Jefferson. Jefferson last year had over 2,000 air yards, 1,600 receiving yards, has the most receiving touchdowns over the first 2 years of his career in NFL history by a mile. And now with the new coaching staff in Minnesota, they're going to throw the ball even more. This means he could have an even bigger target share. I'm very comfortable taking Justin Jefferson at the 103. Stafford elbow situation gets worse. That's how close they are. They're in the same tier. All these first 4 players are in a tier to me where I'm willing to take any of them. Me personally, my draft strategy, I would rather take one of the 2 running backs, so that's why I have them ranked accordingly. But I think they're all studs at their position and worthwhile of one of these high-end draft picks. My number 5 player, and then the beginning of this next tier, is Austin Ekeler, running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. Last year, averaged 19.3 points per game, finishes RB2, had 20 total touchdowns, catches a lot of passes out of the backfield, and plays on a great offense with Justin Herbert there in Los Angeles. They also have a great offensive line there. It's just an offense I want pieces on, to be honest with you, and he is the most valuable piece. Catches about 70 passes a year out of the backfield. You can just about book that. And like I said, in a high-powered offense, when you're going to have opportunities to score touchdowns and you're that involved in the passing game, it basically makes him impossible to game scripted out. And that provides consistency for you on a week-to-week basis, and that's why he came in at number 5 for me, just over my number 6 player, Derrick Henry. Henry last year averaged 23 points per game in the 8 games he suited up for. He's a difference maker when he's on the field and been healthy for the last several years in fantasy football. He's been absolutely dominant, and no other year quite like last year, averaging 27 carries a game. Absolutely monster usage. Now, I doubt he repeats that. I doubt anyone can repeat that. If he does, he most likely gets injured. But even if he gets anywhere close to that, he'll be a very good value for your fantasy teams. Offensive line is worse this year. I think that's something to monitor. Offense in general looks a little worse as well with the loss of A.J. Brown, but they bring in Robert Woods, draft Treylon Burks. They should have enough weapons to keep it going, hopefully, and hopefully that offensive line can step up with some of the absences that they've had in free agency this year. I think the biggest reason that Derrick Henry is at 6, though, he just doesn't catch passes. That's going to lead to a little bit less consistency. And with these top guys, I like the consistent players a little bit more. And with the offensive line woes, it makes me push him down a little bit. But I'd still be excited to get Derrick Henry. He's going to get a ton of volume and should have a lot of rushing opportunities around the goal line as well. My number 7 player is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook last year didn't finish great, disappointing their expectations, but I think that really all comes down to touchdowns. He had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. If you look at the 2 years before that, he had 29 rushing touchdowns combining those 2 seasons. I think he bounces back much closer, double-digit touchdowns on the ground. Like I said with Justin Jefferson, they're going to throw the ball more. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for Dalvin Cook. I think he'll be more used. I think he'll be used more in the passing game and still get a ton of opportunities around the goal line and be the lead back. He's just a difference maker when he's on the field. I think any coaching staff will be clear to see that. And I think this offense could take a step forward this year, which would obviously help lead to more scoring opportunities as well for Dalvin Cook at number 7. Number 8 is Jamar Chase, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. What can I say about Jamar Chase? He just had set the rookie receiving record with 1,455 receiving yards, I believe. 13 receiving touchdowns, was an absolute monster. Finishes a wide receiver 5 in all fantasy football. If he improves in any degree, if the Bengals come out and are pass heavy, he could even improve upon that stat line. I think he led the league in drops as well with 9. A lot of opportunity for Jamar Chase to improve, even if he gets just slightly more targets in year 2. I'd be really excited about getting him with the number 8 selection. He can hit there and doesn't have to improve it to any degree really as well. He's just a dynamite performer for fantasy football. Not hyper consistent, but still very, very good for fantasy football. My next player is Joe Mixon, running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Same offense. Last year finishes the RB3, averaging 16.7 points per game. Had 13 rushing touchdowns. Now gets a greatly improved offensive line. He is utilized in the passing game as well, more than Derrick Henry. Not as much as Austin Ekeler, though, obviously. But still a 40-something reception guy. They said they're going to try to use him more on third down as well this year, which offers some hope, some upside. And like I said, super improved offensive line, ranked 8th this year heading into the season, according to Pro Football Focus. In previous years of his career, they've always been a unit that struggled. So I think first year playing behind a strong offensive line will help his efficiency immensely. Excited for Joe Mixon this year and think he'll get a ton of opportunity to be the lead back on an offense that should be amazing with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Lots of scoring opportunities for him should continue. My number 10 player, Stefon Diggs. Absolutely love getting Stefon Diggs this year in drafts. I think he's going to bounce back in a major way. When you really dive into the numbers of him last year, he got a ton of air yards. Him and Josh Allen just weren't clicking. A lot of those targets he got from Josh Allen actually weren't uncatchable last year. I think they'll hit their stride this year, and then all those air yards will start to pay off. I think his usage in the red zone will continue. I think with the type of target volume he gets, he's a 170 target guy. He should still have double-digit touchdowns or close to it, and I think the yardage and reception numbers bounce back closer to that 2020 season. And I think if you're afraid to draft Stefon Diggs in this year in fantasy, he's going to bite you. I think he's going to be a stud this season, and where he's going in drafts, he's going in second round in some drafts. If I get Stefon Diggs in the second round, I would absolutely love that team. My number 11 player is Alvin Kamara. Last year, he was very good in fantasy football when he was on the field. He always has been. Got a ton of volume last year, 240 carries, career high. averaged a career low in efficiency, but I think a lot of that had to do with the offensive line as well as the offense in general. They could really just sit on Alvin Kamara and go after him. Didn't play the whole season, but he still was very good on a per-game basis for fantasy football, averaging 16.3 points per game. And he didn't have a ton of rushing production, a ton of touchdown production last year, which he usually thrives in that department. I think with improvements they've made to their offense in general, I think their offensive line will bounce back and perform. I don't think they're a bad unit. I think if Alvin Kamara gets anywhere close to that same volume, he'll be a monster for fantasy football. Obviously, there is suspension news looming with him. You don't know exactly when it's going to hit, but I do think he'll get suspended next season. I think there's about a 10% chance that he gets suspended this season, but I think at the back end of the first round, he's still worth the risk. He's such a high-quality running back. He's going to get receptions out of the backfield, even if they're not the same volume as they were when Sean Payton was there. He'll continue to produce with the volume he's given on the ground, and he's just a difference maker, and I think the touchdowns will bounce back as well. And if you get him in the back end of the first round, you could very easily be sitting here winning your fantasy football league. My last player is DeAndre Swift, Lions running back. Last year in 13 games, he had 62 receptions, an absolutely insane volume for him. 97 yards from scrimmage per game compared to Jonathan Taylor. Last year was RB1, 127. I think he'll continue to be utilized more. They have a great offensive line there in Detroit. I think that offers a bunch of upside for him. That offense, like I said, should be much improved. Amon-Ra St. Brown broke out at the end of last year. They have Hawkinson. Signed DJ Chark as well. Jared Goff's second year in the system. Like I said, he's got a good offensive line as well to play behind. And Jameson Williams should join the team some part through the season. Jamal Williams will still get work, but DeAndre Swift's skill set is one of those guys similar to Austin Ekeler. He doesn't need every first and second down carry to be extremely fantasy relevant with the type of volume he's going to get in the passing game. I'd be really excited to draft DeAndre Swift this year in fantasy. Those are my first round rankings. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. Hit that like button. If this video gets 10 likes, I will drop part 2, my next 12 players, very soon. Check out my league winners and RB and wide receiver rankings on the channel. Until next time, this is Fantasy Joe. Thank you guys for watching.